Hi guys, and welcome to those that have bought the BetNotes software. This video is going to be like an accompaniment to the BetNotes software you have, just showing what in particular you can use for each particular game. We've got the coupon opener here for tonight, which is Thursday night. So we're going to just open the Thursday in play coupon and try and pick out sort of what games you would apply to each strategy that you have. Looking at this particular game, it really doesn't matter what the game is or what's at stake. Just looking at the odds here and the past form, recent matches, head-to-heads, and we can see that the overs are fairly high. So the match, they're expecting a low scorer here, hence the 0-0 being sort of around 11s. So what could you do on this particular game? Well, you could use the Adster Aperitif, which is the 2-1, and normally look to take at least 10s for that scoreline. And just a little bit of an addition now to the AA, which is to put just a small amount on the 2-2 scoreline as well. So you're looking at putting 20% on the 2-2 scoreline in case the dog scores. So this is what will happen if a goal goes in. The odds would drop to probably about 8, as you can see. So we can lay off the liability, and we're left with very small red. And the rest, the 2-1 and 2-2, will be in profit awaiting another goal. But if we get to half-time and the score is still 0-0, the 2-1 will most likely drift out to about 24's maximum. So you'll be looking at that sort of loss. But if goals do go in, then you still have the 2-2 alive. So you get 2 or 3 quick goals in the second half, then you're still in with a shout of doing something with the 2-2 profit you have. Another option is you can put a little bit of insurance on the under 1.5 from kickoff, which will obviously decrease your loss at half-time if the score is 0-0. What can I say about this? Tend not to use it really unless using sort of stakes over sort of £100. Horses for courses really. The under 1.5 will come into what the 2.5 starts at, so that gives you an indicator of what the price will come in at half time if the score is 0-0. So we're just looking here at what else we could do in this particular game. We could possibly do the covers, which is backing overs and backing certain scores. Normally you want the home team favourite for this, so you're going to back the 0-0, the 1-0, the 1-1 and the 2-0. The 1-1 I tend to leave about scratch on that. The 0-0 I tend to have sort of around sort of 20-25% if the game finishes 0-0, because then you can add to that score later on to sort of cover any particular sort of kind of loss. Most of the profit for me goes on the 2-0. It's fine if you leave the 1-0 and 2-0 sort of in line with the profit you've left on the over 2.5. So that's what I do now. If the away side scored, then I would back the 1-1 or lay the underdog and trade out from there. It's a good strategy. Tend to use it more for home favourites. And let's look on to another game here. Try and pick one out for odds that'll we can sort of slip into a strategy. Birmingham here, very strong favourites in this Carling Cup, understandably. Premier side. Haven't seen what side they're putting out, won't be trading it myself. As you can see, they've had a fair few draws. They don't tend to lose many at home. Rochdale, on the other hand, aren't sort of doing too well away from home. So overs, as we can see, is very low. And the draw is very high. you could possibly wait for the overs to drift up to maybe 1.90 and then back it with the sort of with the covers, which is the 0-0, 1-0, 2-0, and possibly some on the 1-1 as well. No, it would have taken about 10-15 minutes for the price to get out to about 1.90. So providing it's 0-0 at that point, you can jump into the trade then. So let's have a look at this one. Porto against Genk, and the over 3.5. Forgetting it's kind of the second leg here, don't worry about that. That obviously there's not a lot at stake here. Porto, as you can see, are banging plenty of goals in, and Genk are scoring plenty away. So reading that, you would think, wow, there's going to be a few goals in that game. So let's have a look at possibly the FIP strategy or the NAC, the nearly all covered strategy. We can lay the under 4.5 for say £125. So we've got a liability there, as you can see, of 31. If you're going to use this particular strategy, you would then have to back the under 2.5 goals, giving you more profit on under 2.5. We got sort of about a £10 sort of green over the 4.5, because then you have to cover sort of a couple of scores, a couple of danger scores really. Porto are at home, they're the hot favourites, so over 2.5, obviously your danger scores are sort of 2-1, 3-0, 3-1. You can't cover them all, so I tend to sort of put cover the 2-1 and 3-0. They're the most likely, and sort of look to cover sort of about half of my half to 3/4 of my liability. And another option here is the NAC. You can back over 3.5 and back under 2.5. So we want a little bit more there. So again, we got a little bit more green on the under 2.5, because you have to take into consideration the sort of the danger scores, which are the 3 goals. So the 2-1 and the 3-0. So again, I put some cover on there. It doesn't cover all of the liability, all of the loss, because as the game goes on, you then trade it as the game is progressing, as the scores, as the goals are going in throughout the match. So these are games, these are how I would take positions within these games. Obviously the stakes would be a lot more from myself, but if you're new to this and you're getting used to the strategies, then start off small and kind of work your way up really. This one here looks, again, goals are being scored by either side. They recently played and it was 2-1 to Bruges. As you see, the market cannot split these two, so they're both trading at the same price. So this looks ideal for the nugget nibble, which is the 0-0 and the 2-2. So we look to put half on the 0-0 as we would on the 2-2. So we put £10 there, and we put £20 on the 2-2. So the goals go in, obviously the 2-2 price will come in, but we will have lost the 0-0. If we get to about sort of 20-25 minutes, I tend to then trade out anything from 6 to 7s of the 0-0. So normally up to about sort of 25-30 minutes. Let's move on to this weekend in the Premier, see what we can find there. Now, I can instantly look at these games and decide which strategy to use from experience. This will come for yourselves as well in time. And by looking at the recent form, head-to-heads, scores, and the strategies, we then apply them into the matches. And it gives us a sort of heads up and more chance of making a profit, because these strategies are proven. People do make money on them. And we use them in the chat room. Our members use them, they do profit week in, week out. So let's have a look at Bolton Birmingham here. The draw's fairly low. Bolton are strong home favourites. And the lay the draw price, that's pretty low, so let's just raise that a little bit. Normally when the draw price is that low, you would expect the correct score to be sort of 9s, 10s, pretty low as well. So we'll just sort of use this game as an example. Yeah, if the 0-0 was slightly higher, say 12, 13s, if we put down sort of £15 on the 0-0, a little bit too much. Tend to put down sort of 10% on the 0-0, because at 60, 65 minutes, I can then top that 0-0 up and don't have to trade out of lay the draw like a lot of people do that use lay the draw strategy. So what we'll try and do now, we'll show you a metal tone technique named by the man himself, a member to our service, good lad that he is. And so the dog scores first, Birmingham in this case, and the draw price doesn't actually drift out, it actually steams in a few ticks. So what are we going to do about this? Well, we need to back the draw for 50% of what we laid it for. So in this case we'd need to back the draw for £50, and say Birmingham come in to say 184 because they've just taken the lead. We then lay them for £75, which is 75%. So you can see it all there, how it's done. So we're hoping, obviously, that Bolton come back and score. That's the idea. We can then lay some of their green off. You can add a little bit to the 1-1, because a late goal will obviously lose you £65. So you could put a little bit on the 1-1 scoreline as a bit of extra insurance. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Shows you some of the strategies that can be used via the BetNote software, and we shall be seeing you again soon.